The Grand Temple of Unity floated high above the clouds of Zevar Prime, surrounded by glowing rings of stardust. Inside, the largest hall was filled with thousands of alien guests, ambassadors, leaders, nobles, and soldiers from many different planets. The air shimmered with light from floating orbs, and soft music played from instruments no human had ever seen. Today was an important day. Princess Virelia of the Zevari Empire was about to marry Prince Zalo of the Drex Dominion. Their marriage was not for love, but for peace. The two great powers had been at odds for centuries, and this union was meant to stop future wars. Princess Virelia stood at the center of the temple, dressed in a gown made of shining crystal threads. Her tall, silver-blue frame shimmered under the lights. Her violet eyes held a calm sadness. She knew her duty. She had trained her whole life to be perfect, for her people, for this moment. Across from her stood Prince Zalo, tall and proud, with scales of gold and red. The Drex were a strong warrior race, and Zalo was their finest. He wore a heavy cloak of victory bones and armor plated with rare metals. But his eyes looked away from Virelia, cold and sharp. The High Speaker stepped forward. His voice echoed across the temple. Today we join two stars to form a new galaxy. May peace shine through their bond. He turned to Prince Zalo. Prince of Drex, do you accept this union to honor and protect Princess Virelia and the peace she represents? Zalo paused. Whispers spread across the crowd. Then he raised one hand. I do not accept. The temple fell silent. Zalo's voice rose again, louder now. She is impure. Her genetics are not of perfect Zevari blood. This union is a lie. Gasps and cries echoed. Virelia's heart stopped. Her body remained still, but inside, she was falling. Her father, Emperor Zalith, stood in shock. The Drex delegates looked away, as if they had known. Zalo turned and walked away without another word. The ceremony was over. Virelia stood alone at the altar, the crystal lights now dim and quiet. Her hands trembled. She had been prepared for everything except this. Rejected, not just personally, but publicly, before the galaxy. And worse, labeled impure. In Zevari culture, such a word was a deep shame. The crowd slowly began to leave. Some pitied her. Others whispered behind closed lips. Cameras flashed as reporters hurried to spread the news. Princess rejected at the altar. Drex peace treaty in danger, but not everyone turned away. In the last row of seats, a human stood still. Captain Elias Thorne, Earth's representative to the Zevari peace talks, watched it all. He was not tall like the Drex, nor glowing like the Zevari. His face was ordinary by galactic standards, his skin lightly tanned, his uniform plain. But his eyes held something rare. Kindness without agenda. He had seen Virelia's speeches before. He had read about her work in diplomacy and healing. She was not a symbol to him. She was a person. And now, she was hurt. As the room emptied, Elias stepped forward. The guards didn't stop him, he was no threat. Virelia remained standing, frozen in her place. Her people had not even approached her. She was no longer their pride. She was a failure. Elias stopped a few steps away. He bowed slightly, the human way, and then held out his hand. I'm sorry for what happened, he said softly. Virelia didn't answer. She stared at him with quiet confusion. No one ever spoke to her so simply. Elias reached into his coat and pulled out something small, a folded silk flower made from a cloth Earth delegates used for formal events. It was a simple gesture, but the way he held it, carefully with respect, made it feel like more. This is for you. On Earth, we give these when someone's heart is heavy. Virelia looked at the flower. It was not grand, not glowing, not made of crystal or gold, but it was warm, real. She took it slowly and nodded. You are strange, she said. Most people say that. Elias replied with a smile. For the first time in hours, Virelia felt the tightness in her chest soften. As Elias turned to leave, she called after him. Thank you, human. He paused, then looked Over his shoulder, "Name's Elias." "And you're welcome." As he walked away, Virelia held the small flower in her hands. In a room full of power, only one being had seen her pain and offered something real. Not because of duty, but because he cared. And somewhere deep inside, a new star began to rise. A few days had passed since the failed wedding ceremony. The galaxy still buzzed with news about Princess Virelia's public rejection. Every news channel played the moment again and again when Prince Zalo said, "I do not accept." Virelia's image was everywhere, frozen in time, standing alone at the altar. Inside the royal palace on Zevar Prime, Virelia sat by a large window looking out at the stars. Her room was silent. The walls were decorated with priceless art and glowing plants, but to her it all felt cold now. She held something in her hands, a simple silk flower. It was not made of rare jewels or light crystals, just fabric, folded carefully by human hands. Captain Elias Thorne had given it to her without asking for anything in return. It was strange. Kindness was rare in royal life, even more rare from someone outside her world. And yet that human had spoken to her like she was not a title or a political tool, just a person. There was a soft knock at the door. Her assistant Lyra entered. "Your Highness," Lyra said gently, "a message has come from Earth." "Earth?" Virelia asked, surprised. Lyra nodded and handed her a small glowing disc. Virelia touched it, and a projection floated in the air, a video message. Elias's face appeared, smiling slightly. "Princess Virelia, I hope this message reaches you well. I wanted to say again, I'm sorry for what happened at the ceremony. You deserved better." He paused, then continued. "We are holding the annual Unity Summit on Earth next month. It's not a political event, just a gathering of different cultures sharing ideas, food, and music. I thought, maybe you'd like to come. As a guest, no speeches, no press, just you. Free." The message ended. Virelia stared at the space where the image had been. She had received many invitations in her life, but none like this. No pressure, no hidden goals. Just a simple request from someone who saw her, not her title. For the first time since the rejection, she smiled. Just a little. The spaceport on Earth was smaller than the Zevari stations, but full of life. Virelia stepped off her ship, wearing a soft robe of dark blue. She had left behind her usual royal crown and jewels. Here, she wanted to be different. Elias was waiting for her near the entrance. He wore a clean but simple black uniform with a silver pin showing Earth's flag. "You came," he said, a bit surprised but clearly happy. "You invited me," she replied, her tone calm but curious. Elias offered his hand. "Welcome to Earth." She looked at it for a moment, then placed her hand gently in his. It was warmer than she expected. The Unity Summit took place in a large green park in New Geneva, one of Earth's new floating cities. Colorful tents stood across the area. There were music stages, food stalls, and groups from dozens of planets dancing, singing, and laughing. Virelia walked through the summit beside Elias. Everything felt open and bright. A Drex child played music with a human girl. A bird-like alien taught people a feather painting game. And nobody looked at Virelia like she was strange. A group of humans smiled and waved at her. One of them said, "We saw your interview on the news, you were so strong." Another added, "Your dress at the ceremony? Stunning." Virelia blinked. No one mentioned her being impure. No one looked down on her. Instead, they treated her like a friend. Elias guided her to a nearby food table. "Want to try something new? This is called ice cream." She looked at the cold, colorful dessert with curiosity. She took a small bite and her eyes lit up. "It's sweet," she said with surprise. Elias laughed. "I told you Earth is full of surprises." Later that evening, the two of them sat under a glowing tree, its leaves blinking softly like stars. The music in the background was gentle. Virelia looked up at the sky, where Zevar's star was just barely visible. I always thought I had to be perfect, she said softly. Perfect blood, perfect words, perfect loyalty. Elias looked at her quietly, letting her speak. But that day when he rejected me, it was like all the rules shattered. And then, you handed me a flower, something so small, but it felt true. Elias smiled. Sometimes truth hides in small things. She turned to him, her expression thoughtful. Why did you do it? He shrugged. You looked like you needed a friend, and I thought, maybe I did too. They sat in silence. For a moment, then she said, Thank you, Elias. You're welcome, Virelia. As the night went on, laughter filled the summit, but under the glowing tree, two people from different worlds sat together, both changed in quiet, gentle ways. Neither of them knew what the future held, but for now, they were no longer alone. A soft breeze moved through the trees of New Geneva as the Unity Summit continued. For most people, it was just a week of celebration and culture, but for Princess Virelia, it was something much more. For the first time in her life, she felt free from the eyes of judgment, from royal rules, and from the weight of being perfect. Each day, she explored Earth with Captain Elias Thorne. He showed her gardens filled with plants from across the stars, museums where humans told their strange and wonderful history, and small cafes where people talked for hours over cups of warm drinks. Elias was not like anyone Virelia had known. He listened more than he spoke. He smiled with his eyes. He treated everyone with kindness, whether they were a prince, a farmer, or a child running by with sticky hands. One evening, as the summit neared its end, Virelia sat with Elias beside a calm lake. The water reflected the night sky like a mirror. Distant stars blinked above them. You know, Elias said, skipping a flat stone across the water. Earth wasn't always peaceful. We fought wars, made mistakes, big ones. Virelia turned to him. What changed? He thought, for a moment. We learned that peace isn't just a treaty. It's a choice we have to make, every day. Virelia nodded. Your people seem to forgive easily. They see beauty in things others would throw away. Elias smiled. Maybe because we were once the ones others looked down on. Now, we try to lift others up. Virelia looked at her reflection in the water. In my world, being different is dangerous. But here it seems celebrated. That's because we know strength isn't always loud. Sometimes strength is just being yourself. The next morning, Virelia received a message from her home planet. It was not kind. The Zavari High Council demanded her return. They called her visit to Earth a disgrace and said she had brought shame to her bloodline. If she did not return, they would remove her from the royal line. Virelia sat alone in her guest room, reading the message again and again. Her heart felt heavy. Was her place truly gone? Was she now a stranger to her own people? Just then, there was a knock. Elias stepped inside quietly. I heard the news. She didn't speak at first. Then she said softly, They want me to go home. But it doesn't feel like home anymore. Elias sat beside her. Then don't go back, stay here with us. Virelia turned to him, eyes wide. You don't have to be a princess here, you can just be Virelia. You can live, laugh, make mistakes, even fall in love. Her voice trembled. But what would I be without my name? He looked at her gently. You'd be yourself. And that would be more than enough. Later that week, Earth's Unity Council offered Virelia an honorary role, cultural ambassador for galactic understanding. It was not political. It was about building bridges, teaching peace, sharing knowledge, and showing young people from all planets that kindness could be stronger than power. The moment was broadcast across many systems. Most expected her to decline. But Virelia stood at the podium, dressed not in royal robes but in a simple Earth-style dress. She spoke with calm, clear words. I was born in a world where differences were feared, where one small mark made someone less. But here I've learned something powerful. Being different does not mean being broken. It means being complete in a new way. She paused. I accept this honor, not as a princess, but as a voice for those who are made to feel small. I will speak for them and walk with them. The room stood in silence, then burst into applause. Elias watched from the side, his heart full. That night, as the stars glowed over New Geneva, Elias and Virelia walked side by side in the quiet city. You were amazing today, Elias said. She smiled. I spoke the truth. For once it felt easy. He looked at her, serious now. You don't have to answer this right away, but I want you to stay. Not just as a guest, not just for work, but with me. Virelia stopped walking. The wind moved gently through her silver blue hair. Are you asking me to start a life with you? She asked softly. He nodded. I see your strength, your grace, your heart. Not as a symbol, not as a royal, but as Virelia. And I think I'm falling for you. Her eyes glistened, not with sadness, but something warm. I'll stay, she whispered, and in that moment under Earth's sky, two souls from different stars found a place they could call home, together. Virelia's life on Earth had become peaceful, but not quiet. After accepting her new role as cultural ambassador, she spent her days visiting schools, learning centers and unity stations where young beings from many planets studied side by side. Children loved her stories, and her calm voice inspired them. Elias watched her with admiration. He had seen leaders, soldiers, and heroes, but none like her. Virelia led with grace, not force. Her kindness left deeper marks than any weapon could. Still, trouble stirred in the galaxy. Far beyond Earth's system, in the Drex dominion, anger burned. Prince Zalo, the very one who had rejected Virelia at the altar, now faced shame from his own people. The treaty between the Drex and the Zivari had collapsed after the failed wedding. Trade had slowed. Borders were tense. Some Drex blamed Zalo for rejecting the union. Others believed he had saved their purity. But one thing was clear. Virelia was rising again. Without them. She dares to speak across the stars, Zalo growled during a private meeting. She was rejected. She should have disappeared, and now she shines brighter than ever. An older Drex general leaned forward. There is talk that she may join Earth fully, perhaps even bond with a human. Zalo slammed his fist on the table. Unacceptable. The Zivari name will be tied to that small, fragile world. Another voice, calmer, said, Then perhaps we remind the galaxy of her place. On Earth, Virelia and Elias sat in a quiet garden behind the Unity Hall. It was a place they often visited after long days. Virelia had learned to grow earth flowers, and a small section of the garden was now filled with silver and violet blooms from her home planet, carefully mixed with Earth's red and blue ones. It's strange, she said, while watering a plant, how something from one world can grow beside another and still both bloom. Elias smiled. Like us. She laughed softly. Yes, like us. Just then, Elias's comm device buzzed. He checked the screen. His face grew serious. What is it? Virelia asked. We received a report. A Drex scout ship entered Earth's outer zone without permission. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Was it a mistake? He shook his head. No. They were scanning deep, looking for something. Virelia stood. Or someone. That night, the skies above Earth darkened with more than just clouds. From the far edge of the atmosphere, a Drex stealth craft hovered quietly. Inside, a small group of Drex elites waited for the signal. Their mission was not to start a war. It was to deliver a message. Virelia was to be taken or silenced. On the ground, Elias and a small Earth Guard team were already alert. Virelia had been moved to a secure location, but she refused to hide completely. I left behind fear when I stepped off my ship, she said. If they want to speak with me, let them come. But I will not run. Elias stood beside her. Then I'll stand with you. The attack came just before midnight. 3 Drex drop pods slammed into the Earth forest near New Geneva. They moved quickly, trained, armed, and silent, but they were not alone. Earth security systems activated instantly. Drones flew overhead. Shields formed around key buildings, and Elias led the response team with calm speed. In the middle of it, all stood Virelia unarmed, facing the lead Drex soldier. "Why are you here?" she asked. The soldier's voice was deep. "You bring dishonor to 2 great empires. You belong to neither now. You must return or disappear." "I belong to truth," she replied, standing tall. "I speak for unity, not war, for hope, not pride. If that is shameful to you, then your empire is already lost." The soldier raised his weapon. Before he could act, Elias stepped forward and fired a warning shot. "That's far enough," he said. The standoff lasted only moments, but they were long, heavy ones. Then, unexpectedly, the Drex lowered his weapon. "You are not weak," he said to Virelia. "You should be dead already. And yet, I see no fear in you." "I fear only silence," she replied. The soldier turned and left, his team following. The message had been sent, but so had hers. Weeks had passed since the Drex tried to capture Virelia. The news of the attack had spread across many systems. Some were shocked, others were inspired. Virelia had become more than just a fallen princess. She had become a voice of courage, standing against old hate. But with fame came pressure. Virelia now attended daily meetings, peace talks, and interviews. Her face was on screens in every major city on Earth and beyond. People asked her for advice, praised her strength, and begged her to visit their homeworlds. And yet sometimes, she missed the quiet. She missed walking with Elias in the gardens. She missed sitting under the glowing tree. She missed the soft, normal moments where she could just be Virelia. One evening, Elias found her standing by the edge of the lake, looking at the stars. "You're quiet tonight," he said, stepping beside her. She smiled faintly. "I've been speaking so much lately, it's nice to let the silence talk for once." He looked at her face, tired, thoughtful, but still strong. "You don't have to carry the whole galaxy," he said gently. She sighed. "But sometimes it feels like the galaxy is watching, waiting. I'm no longer a princess, yet they listen to me more than ever." "That's because they believe in you," Elias said. She turned to him, her silver eyes soft. "Do you?" He chuckled. "From the moment you corrected my flying mistake at the summit's landing pad," that made her laugh, and for a moment the weight on her shoulders felt lighter. The next morning, Virelia received a message from an unexpected place, Zevar Prime, her home planet. But it was not from the Council. It was from her mother, Queen Aria. The screen flickered on, and the Queen's calm, proud face appeared. "My daughter," the Queen said, "you are no longer of the palace, but you are still of our people. I have watched you from afar. I have seen your strength." Virelia said nothing. Her hands trembled slightly. "Change is feared by many," her mother continued. "But you made it beautiful. There are young ones here, on Zevar, who now look in the mirror and feel proud. Because of you." Virelia's heart ached. She hadn't spoken to her mother since the failed marriage. She thought the Queen had turned away from her like the others. "Your father says little," Arya added with a soft smile, "but he watches the stars where you walk." Then her mother said something she had never said before. "You are free, Virelia, and still loved." The message ended. Tears rolled down Virelia's cheeks. She wasn't broken. She was still a daughter, still whole. Later that day, Elias and Virelia stood on a small balcony outside the Unity Council building. The city buzzed below with life. Children from different worlds played in the streets. Lights blinked in the distance. "I got a message from my mother," Virelia said quietly. Elias raised his brows. "Good news?" She nodded slowly. She said, I'm still loved, even if I don't return. Elias didn't speak right away. Then he asked, do you want to go back? She thought carefully. No, not yet. My place is here, with the people who gave me a second chance. She looked at him. With you. They stood close and the wind moved gently through their hair. Elias, she said after a pause, I've been thinking about something I once thought impossible. He turned to her fully curious. I want to bond, she said. With you, in the old way. His eyes widened. You mean, like a union? Yes, she said. Not for politics, not for peace, just for love. For a moment he was speechless. Then a slow, deep smile spread across his face. Then let's do it. Not with 1,000 guests or a royal hall. Just us. Just real. 1 week later, under the glowing tree where it had all begun, Virelia and Elias stood side by side. She wore a simple gown, decorated with earth leaves and Zevar gems. He wore a dark suit with a single silver line, the symbol of unity. There were no royal choirs, no fancy speeches, just close friends, fellow peace workers, and a small gathering of humans and aliens who had seen their journey. Virelia spoke first. Elias, you saw me when others looked away. You reached out your hand when I stood alone. I offer my life to you not as a title but as a heart. Elias took her hands. Virelia, you showed me courage without weapons, beauty without pride. I offer my heart to you, not as a soldier, but as a man. And under the stars, they became more than partners. They became family. But far away, in the shadows of the galaxy, whispers grew louder. Prince Zalo watched the broadcast in silence. His pride had broken once. Now, it burned. She has chosen Earth, he said coldly. And Earth will pay. The stars above Earth were calm, but something dark was coming. Prince Zalo had been quiet since the bonding of Virelia and Elias. But silence did not mean peace. In the deep reaches of space, he gathered ships, fast ones, silent ones. Not to start a war, but to deliver a message. A loud, final message. She belongs to us, he said to his generals. If she won't return, so we'll take back our honor another way. The Drex Dominion did not officially support Zalo's plan, but many in his circle believed he was right. To them, Virelia had betrayed her people, and Elias, he was just a human. On Earth, life continued in a strange balance. Virelia and Elias now lived in a quiet home on the edge of New Gene. Vashi still worked as an ambassador, traveling between Earth and nearby worlds. Elias had returned to his post as a star pilot, but stayed close to home. In the evenings, they often sat on the balcony together, watching the lights in the sky. Sometimes, Elias said one night, I forget that we're part of something so big. But then I remember, all of this started with one moment, one rejection, and one choice to see beauty. Virelia smiled, and now that moment has become a path. But even as they spoke softly, Earth's security systems had picked up something unusual. Unknown signals from deep space moving fast toward their planet. General Monroe, head of Earth Defense, called an emergency meeting. The Drex have sent a fleet, she said to the Unity Council. They are not answering our hails. We believe this is an unauthorized attack. Is it a full invasion? Someone asked. No, Monroe said. It looks like a targeted strike. Their lead ship is heading straight for the New Geneva zone. Elias's heart sank. That's where Virelia is, he whispered. Without waiting for orders, he rushed to his ship. At the same time, Virelia had been speaking to young students at a space academy when the alert sounded. The room shook slightly, lights dimmed, a low hum echoed through the walls. A guard rushed in. Princess Ambassador, you need to come with us. Virelia stood calmly. What is happening? Unmarked ships have entered our sky. We're moving all key leaders to safety. She nodded, but her eyes narrowed. This is not a random attack, it's Zalo. The guard paused. How can you be sure? Because he knows where I am. Above the clouds, Elias's ship soared fast and silent. He contacted the command tower. Put me through to the Drex lead ship, he said. A few seconds passed. Then a cold, familiar voice came through. Captain Thorne, said Prince Zalo, how nice to hear your voice. Have you come to watch the stars fall? This doesn't need to happen, Elias said. You're risking peace across 5 systems. Risk nothing, Zalo said. I take back what was stolen. You lost her, Elias said, calm but firm. She chose her own life. That is not theft. That is freedom. Zalo laughed bitterly. A Zavari princess bonding with a human? That is not freedom, that is insult. It's love, Elias said. And if you don't understand that, you've already lost. Zalo ended the call. On the ground, Virelia stepped outside the academy building as people were being evacuated. Above her, a Drex dropship descended slowly. Its dark shape blocked the sun. She stood still. The ship opened. Prince Xalo appeared, dressed in armor. You made a mistake, he said. No, Virelia replied, steady. I made a choice. You could have been queen of 2 worlds. Instead, you chose a soldier. I chose a heart, one that listens, one that cares. Zalo walked closer. You made me look weak. No, she said softly. You did that to yourself. He raised a device in his hand. Then this ends now. Suddenly, a sharp blast hit the ground between them. Elias's ship hovered above, doors open. He stood at the edge, aiming. Back away from her, Elias said. Now, Zalo growled. This is your last warning, human. No, Elias replied. This is yours. From behind the clouds, Earth defense drones appeared, dozens of them, ready to strike. Zalo looked around. For the first time, his confidence cracked. He lowered his device. This is not over, he said. Virelia stepped forward. Yes, it is, because I no longer fear you. She turned her back and walked toward Elias's ship, and Zalo, defeated not by weapons, but by courage, returned to his ship and vanished into the sky. Later that night, the people of Earth celebrated. The threat was over. No war had started, no blood had spilled. No blood. But something had been won. Respect. Virelia stood once again before the unity circle. I chose love, she said. And today, love chose peace. Let this be the way forward. Not fear, not control, but understanding. The hall erupted in applause. Elias stood beside her, proud. They had faced the storm together and stood tall. Months had passed since the Drex threat vanished from Earth's skies. The galaxy had changed. The failed strike by Prince Zalo became a lesson for many worlds. They realized that force could not win against unity. People who once stayed silent now began to speak. New voices rose in the councils of peace. Even small planets long ignored were given a seat at the table, and at the center of it all stood Virelia and Elias, symbols of what could be built when different hearts chose to walk the same path. In New Geneva, the couple lived a quieter life now. The galaxy still asked for their guidance, but they took more time for themselves. Their home was filled with peaceful moments, cooking together, reading messages from distant friends, and planting new trees in their shared garden. One morning, Virelia stood at the balcony watching the sun rise. The sky was soft with colors, blue, gold, and a faint shade of violet. Elias came beside her with 2 cups of warm tea. You always wake before the sun, he said with a smile. I like to greet the light before the world gets busy, she replied. They sat together, quietly sipping tea, as birds chirped and airships passed slowly overhead. I was thinking, Virelia said, about starting something new, something bigger than myself. Elias looked at her. Like what? Place where young beings from every race can learn, live, and grow together, she said. Not just to study, but to understand each other, a school of unity. Elias nodded slowly. That would be amazing. I want to call it the Dawn House, she said. A place where every child, no matter their planet or past, can rise with hope. The news of the Dawn House spread quickly. Donations came from all over the galaxy. Builders and teachers volunteered. Even some former Drex citizens joined the project, inspired by Virelia's bravery. Soon, on a wide green plain outside New Geneva, construction began. It wasn't just a school, it became a symbol of the future. The first students arrived from many different worlds. A soft-skinned child from the water world Pelis, a Drex girl whose parents had left Zalo's command, a young human boy who dreamed of stars. They all wore the same simple symbol on their chest, a rising sun held by two hands, one human, one alien. One day, while walking through the new school's hallway, Virelia was stopped by a young Zavari girl. "Ambassador," the girl said shyly. "My name is Leva. I wanted to thank you. Before, I was ashamed of how I looked. People on my planet told me I would never be chosen." Virelia knelt down and smiled kindly. "Leva, your value does not come from others choosing you. It comes from choosing yourself." The girl smiled and hugged her. Elias watched from afar and felt a deep pride in his heart. In the far reaches of space, Prince Zalo had disappeared. Some believed he had gone into hiding. Others thought he was building again, waiting for another chance. But the galaxy no longer feared him. They had seen something stronger than pride. They had seen kindness win. On the one-year anniversary of the Dawn House, Virelia and Elias stood before a crowd of thousands, students, leaders, families, and visitors from across the stars. The school was now fully alive, its walls decorated with art from every culture, its halls echoing with laughter, and its gardens, filled with plants from 100 planets. Virelia stepped up to speak. "When I first came to Earth," she began, "I was lost. I had been rejected at the altar, not for my actions, but for how I was born. I believed I had no place. But then, someone looked at me, not as a failure, not as a mistake, but as a person." She turned to Elias and smiled. That simple act changed everything. It taught me that love can heal more than time and hope can grow in the hardest soil. She looked at the students. "You are the future, not because of where you come from, but because of what you can choose. Choose to be kind, choose to be curious, choose to stand beside someone different and say, 'We can rise together.'" The crowd stood and cheered. Tears filled many eyes. That night, Virelia and Elias sat once more under the glowing tree where their story began. Stars glittered above. The wind was gentle. "Do you ever think about what might have happened if you hadn't looked at me that day?" Virelia asked. Elias chuckled. "Then I'd be a lonely pilot, and the galaxy would be a little darker." She took his hand. "But instead," he said softly, "we lit a fire that others can follow. And under that sky, two hearts, one human, one Zavari, beat as one, not because they were the same, but because they chose to love across the stars."